all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the CPS website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the social distancing and safety protocols established by the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Guidelines. Anyone interested in speaking during the public input session of the portion of the meeting would notify the superintendent's office by yesterday afternoon has been provided with these guidelines and assign a time to attend the meeting to speak. If anyone watching this meeting live has questions or comments to share, you're encouraged to email one of us during the meeting, and we'll read their questions or comments during our second public input session at the end of the meeting. So, welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. Our first item on the agenda is approval of our minutes for our meeting on June 1st.
I move that we approve the school committee minutes from the regular meeting on June 1st.
Second.
Okay, anybody have any corrections on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of approval?
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. Okay, all right, anyone have any good news?
The end of the school year.
That's the best news.
We're convening after graduation, for the first time since graduation, am I right?
Yes.
I am.
Yes.
Time is like
Yeah.
passing by. I thought it was an excellent day. I just really, congratulations to all the families. It was great to see them all sitting in those stands, and the students all in person. And so I just wanted to say it was great. I really, really enjoyed it. The second thing is that I really want to congratulate Jeff. I did not realize how incredible an actor he is. Really, truthfully. And the fact that he did it during COVID, remotely, really, because you had not met all the
No, I haven't.
actors, right, in
No.
person. That was amazing. And Pendleton was a success. It was really, I thought, well done for the first time that they've done a movie and a full-length movie. So congratulations also to the theater group, to the theater guild, to Mrs. Cochran, to everybody involved, and TV too. They did a lot of editing for the movie, so it was very good. But Jeff, really, and at the end of the movie, you know what they said at the end of the movie, right? Yeah. So there must be a future thing here about we're going to have to make some motion at some future meeting so that he moves up in position here. Otherwise, we may lose him to the acting guild.
I don't think that's going to, if it hasn't happened in 67 years, it's not going to happen now.
Really, truly amazing, Jeff. So congratulations on having done that, and especially during this crazy year.
It was a lot of, the students were great, and Lauren and Pat putting everything together, and not having seen it, not knowing the whole, because you don't. It's not as if when you're in a play, because you're doing segments here and there. It was great. I think it was well written. The students, as always, were fantastic, and they were very patient with the old man playing an old man, so it was good.
I also thought Mr. O'Donnell did a great job of covering it, because he was there to meet, to see folks, to do pictures, to put it on the site immediately. Did a very nice job with that, and the students looked phenomenal for their red carpet moment. So that was terrific. But honestly, I went home saying, wow, Jeff was good.
All right, any other good news anybody wants to share?
No, I just think we should mention, though, that there's been a lot of outstanding performances, I think, over the last couple of weeks. I noticed that several posted on the Chelmsford Public Schools website. So, really congratulations to everyone who's, had to do something a little bit different, but still has nonetheless had the opportunity to show what it is that they've accomplished over the course of the year.
Just to add to that, the sports teams, very successful. I believe the boys and girls lacrosse and boys volleyball were all MVC champs. And I don't know if all three of them were undefeated, but yeah.
Yeah,
that's
they haven't lost
quite
yet.
an accomplishment.
Truly,
Yeah,
truly wonderful.
very good season, so.
And it's nice to see the website carrying these things as they happen. So that's phenomenal.
All right, anything else on good news? Okay, all right, we're to our first public comment session, but I don't believe we have anybody that's registered, so.
We don't.
Okay, so we'll move on to new business. So first thing is a presentation.
Great. Yeah, tonight we have Nancy Antolini, our Director of School Nutrition with us. And Nancy usually comes every June and does a little year in review. So I'm going to help you with the presentation, but we're happy to hear from you about how your year went.
Okay.
Get this queued up for you. There you go.
So this year being very different, as we all know, the number of lunches and breakfasts you see there, breakfast we were 188,554, and lunches we served 199,814. It was a very successful year all around. We had a great staff. The staff was fantastic doing this. So we were pleased with that. That's only till June 8th. I just finished, well, I have to wait till Brian finishes tomorrow, so we will add on to that for June. So as you know, similar to the school year, breakfast and lunch school year 2022 will be at no cost again to all students. That is due to the USDA's, the federal funding will come through again. That was voted on, which our prices are normally at. Breakfast is $1.50 for all schools, and lunch, we have high school and middle school at $3.10 and elementary school at $2.65. So next year, hopefully if we could serve normally and all, and we keep the numbers up, the reimbursement rate is higher than the normal reimbursement rate that you get during normal times. So that'll be great for us. For on the procurement for 2021-22, our bids were awarded again to Mansfield Paper for our paper bid. Our dairy, our milk bid is going to state bid, and the reason being that drivers, as you might have heard a lot of talk this year, they can't keep up with the New England ice cream, can't keep up with all the stops and how many times they have to stop, and of course what our bid says as far as there are certain things written in the bid that they can't come before 7 in the morning, they can't come after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's just bids for schools. So unfortunately, it's not unfortunate in some ways, but we have to go out to the state bid. So they didn't, nobody bid on us for milk. And that's not just us, that's the 12 other towns that I bid out with. Groceries going back to Thurston, bread to Fantini, and if we have a chance to do fresh pizza, there was a rollover for Gill's Pizza. So COVID-19, the school, our department continues to do a grab-and-go meal for most of the year, providing meals for hybrid and remote students from September through April. Once the students return fully in-person learning in April, May, and June, the grab-and-go meals were still enjoyed. They were enjoyed in the cafeterias and the gymnasiums and outdoors, and some in the classrooms. We used, again, the high school for a commissary, was the main kitchen preparing the meals for the district, with delivery to each school, initially for the hybrid, then we expanded to fully in-person students when they were in school, but we kept delivering, and we worked from the high school. So we had quite a time up there, but it really went well. Grab-and-go meals for the remote days were available for families to pick up at the high school on Tuesdays and Fridays from 12 till 5 for most of the school year. And at the end of April, we cut back, after everyone was back in school full-time, we cut back to just Tuesdays, the remote pickup, because, of course, the numbers dropped quite a bit. But we still had about 50 families come and pick up for the rest of the school year. So in the future, we will be working to continue serving our students in the new normal as guidelines evolve. We will also continue serving breakfast and lunch, prepackaging all of our meals for the elementary school especially. We will still work out of the high school until we have enough staff back. And then we will, like I said, prepackage our own food. And we hopefully will use also our new Parker kitchen, which I hope you all got a chance to see it because it's unbelievable. And then our other goal for the future is to grow with professional development and team building for the school nutrition staff, which I think this year they had hands-on team building and it really worked out. And when you do see Parker, there's no way we can't do scratch cooking because it's really incredible. And I hope to achieve a smooth transition to the Hungry Lion Cafe, which is the name of the Parker cafeteria. And next, we will be hopefully review some vending machine opportunities at the high school. And there's a little area at the high school, a little room that we're hoping to look at to do like grab and go. Steve and I have gone over it, and some so those students that don't want to wait in the long lines or just want some snacks or everything. So hopefully. So staff training this year, we had the COVID-19 protocol training, of course, the distancing, et cetera, geared for food preparation. And the school nursing department with Peggy Gump was always there checking on us. They worked with us. They were incredible with us, I have to say. Always supporting us, always answering our questions. And they were there to answer any of our questions and concerns. And then the other training we had, many of the staff had an overall training on the new kitchen equipment at the Parker School. And we will have more training in August. There'll be in-house training at that point. And then the last one was the staff all attended a virtual training from John Stalker. It was for keeping positive attitudes throughout the pandemic. And Chelmsford got a few shout-outs because we were the only ones we had. We used the room up at the high school, and the whole staff was there. So Rob Leshin, of course, the director of nutrition, he saw it on the Zoom, and there was a few shout-outs because we had everyone in attendance. My personal professional accomplishments that this year, I was vice president of the School Nutrition Association, which wasn't a very exciting year, but now I'm president-elect, so it'll be a fun, exciting year for me there. And this was, I just wanted to show you this slide that Governor Baker, on May 1st, he had declared us School Lunch Hero Day, and he had that proclamation. He read it to all of us. It was a Zoom that he sent to Rob Leshin so that everybody was there. So it was really nice to see that, he recognized what food service did during this whole pandemic.
That's great.
And that's what I have to say.
All right, anyone have any questions? Donna?
So first of all, thank you for all of your hard work. I think going back to last March, what you and your department have done has been extraordinary.
Thank you.
Not just for the kids, in our schools, but for the entire community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes.
One question I have has to do with marketing. I still think that there are people in the town who think that we contract with an outside vendor to bring meals in that are heated up and then distributed throughout the schools. Is there anything that you can think of that we could do to kind of get the word out about this really extraordinary program and how much it is that we provide to the kids and families throughout the district?
So unfortunately, we did start a Facebook page. We don't have a lot of followers. It's too bad. I'm hoping that Parker, once that's open and running up to how it should be, that the public will see more of what we do. It's always been a concern. Joanna, I talk to her about this all the time. It's always been a concern of mine. So, but I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman now that works that I can talk to over the summer maybe that can help me to kind of market us a little bit better.
And then one other thing too that we didn't have the opportunity for this year because I think that obviously with COVID we weren't doing the activities. But you also work a lot with the PTOs when they're doing their fundraisers in years past to be able to provide food for them at a greatly reduced cost, right? So that way they have available healthy food and make a greater profit at some of their fundraising activities. Are we still going to do that going forward?
So today we did field day at South Row.
Oh.
So we did it today, and actually it worked out well because we were feeding the students. We gave them all the components, so the PTO didn't have to pay me anything because it was, all the meals were properly served, and they're free.
Thank you.
I think this year, I think, Nancy, probably it would have been very difficult to fill a lot of requests more than what you already did this year, which was immense. And I echo exactly what Donna said. Thank you for all that work for the community and for the school, for everybody. But I think going forward, your services, I will make sure that I mention this also when we go. There are opportunities for additional things in person and where food can be provided so that you get to bid on it too, right? Is that
That's what we'd
what the
like to do.
process would be? Okay, so I will make sure of that too, that I do pass that on. And I want to thank you a lot. I know there are quite a few people that have talked to me that what was done this year meant a lot to them. Just the grab and go for the kids when they were going home and then having to join again in the afternoon. There were many families who had never taken advantage of food at the school who were delighted to have that ability to just grab that food and get going into the afternoon. So that's great. And I'm so glad to see you doing the breakfast.
Thank you.
Plus, it's been great to work with you on the Wellness Committee. Really, truly.
Well, just one note on that, on as far as like, doing more catering, as we say. Once I think that you see what we can send out of that kitchen at Parker, like we have the grill, we have a charbroiler, we have an Ovation oven. Once they see all of this, I really think that they'd be very happy to use us for catering. So let's hopefully that will.
Great.
Kind of related to what Maria, how did this year's numbers compare to like last year's numbers? Do we get a big uptick in people who are taking advantage? I would assume so.
And even after, I was concerned, I'm not going to lie, I was concerned once we started going, once we were all back in and how we had to serve and all, I would call Drew, I think my numbers are going to go down, down, down. And they really did not. We really had great success with it. And we're just really catching on where we were doing a lot more. At the beginning, when the students all came back, it was very hard because we didn't know numbers or anything. And some of the food I was not proud of. It wasn't food I normally would serve because, of course, every manufacturer was coming out with IWs, individually wrapped sandwiches, individually wrapped this. And so we tried it because we didn't know the numbers and we didn't know how we would accomplish it. And I didn't want to make a mistake and not serve the students. So gradually we started saying, okay, I kept saying, I don't like this. But we did, the only complaint we did have this year, and it wasn't a complaint, we really could not get product. We could not get product. Our milk only came once a week instead of twice a week. And because when as we were told, and we have many letters from like Thurston, they laid off their drivers, but then they had to rehire drivers, but those drivers already found jobs. So we literally were like, we'd order something, it would be 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks for the product to come in. So our menu, and we have that on the bottom of the menu, that was the only thing I think people once in a while were getting upset about because we could not follow the menu. But, every time I talked to someone, I said, I'm sorry, it's really not our fault. We couldn't get the products. So,
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I don't think that people kind of know what goes on behind the scenes.
yeah, what?
And so, you see things on social media and whatnot, and people just don't understand, what you're up against. Certainly because of the, not being able to get the product, but also having to deal with the individually wrapped things and all of these things because of COVID, and it was a big problem.
Yeah.
I do have one more question.
How can we best help you moving forward? What do you anticipate your needs to be, or problems that you may see coming forward that we may be able to address?
We just need more bodies. we need more employees in the food service department, which we've gone over and we have it, but we've been on School Spring. I don't feel School Spring is the best place for us to advertise. I don't think people that are looking for kitchen jobs really go on School Spring. So that's the only thing. If I had the proper amount of employees, things would be great. That's my only, so if you know of anybody, I'm going to be I've reached out to trade schools too, and nobody really right now has anybody.
Seems to be a problem just in general.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
But I was thinking when unemployment stopped, maybe, but we'll see. That's my only problem.
Great. Thank
But
you.
the staff I have is terrific.
Excellent.
Yeah,
They are.
yeah, they are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Yep.
Second item this evening, and Nancy actually worked on this as Maria had mentioned earlier. We have the review of our wellness policy for the year. I know Katie Sims is here this evening as well. Katie, would you maybe mind just giving us a little kind of overview of the work that the Wellness Committee did this year and kind of how you came to the the recommendations that are before us tonight to make some of the adjustments to the wellness policy?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. So at the end of the summer, it was publicized on the Department of Education website that they were offering free wellness coaches to different districts around Massachusetts, and that people could apply. And it was kind of like a mini grant, but it was free for the district and free for the person to come in. So Stephanie Quinn and I, she co-chairs the wellness committee with me. We filled out the application, sent it in an email, it was very easy. We heard back within a couple weeks that we had been accepted, which was great. So we were assigned a wellness coach from the Department of Education. We got so many hours with the coach. We got technical support hours. We got pre-meeting hours. Our coach, her name was Linnea. She was phenomenal. She came to all of our wellness committee meetings. She helped facilitate some of the discussion. And very early on, we realized that we hadn't done an assessment of our wellness policy in a really long time. So she said, I think that's the first thing you should do. So we did that. And we realized through the assessment that we were just out of compliance on paper in a lot of areas, not necessarily in the schools, but we just hadn't updated a lot of the language. So it was a great process to go through because it kind of broke it down into a couple of different areas. So it had the federal requirements, it had some best practices that they recommend, but obviously not required. And then they also offered through the assessment just sample language for us, which was very helpful. And it broke it down into 6 different categories, which was great. So then we split our wellness committee up into 6 different smaller groups. So each smaller group took a different section and kind of made tweaks and updates and adjustments based on the assessment that we did was called the WellSat. So based on the WellSat, they made those recommendations. We kind of met together as a team, went through that, probably spent a couple of meetings doing that because it is quite a long document, and kind of tweaking things. So our final product we're pretty happy with, the draft that you have with you today. So all the federal laws are updated. Some of the outdated language was updated, maybe just wrong grade levels were listed or misinformation, so we scratched some of that. And then some of the best practices that I felt that the committee really enjoyed, we kind of thought that either A, we were already doing in Chelmsford or partially doing and thought that was an important piece to put into the policy. So yeah, that's kind of the whole year in a little bit of a snapshot. It was great to have a coach. It was nice to have an outside perspective, kind of help us with we have a great wellness advisory committee. We have for many years, I think. It's a great crew. But it was nice to have someone from the outside come in and kind of give this new perspective and kind of help facilitate and work with us to update some of the policies.
So you do have in your packet this evening, there was a cover memo, and then the first document that Katie had provided was a red line copy. So anytime there was red words inserted, that was new language that went into the existing policy. Anytime something was stricken, it had a strike through to show that it would be coming out. And then there's a clean copy of the entire policy at the end. So certainly for discussion, and then ultimately, if it's the committee's desire, it will be a motion to accept the amended policy. And what we would then do is work with MASS and get that new policy up on our website. Takes a couple of days, but it's not too bad. But we'll get that up there and we'll make a note of the changes for going forward.
So, because I'm the school committee person on this committee, I'd like to say, first of all, thank you to everybody on the committee. I think they did a great job. They were always there. Nancy was also part of this committee. And there were other members that just everybody worked hard to make it what it is today. I think Desi also did take a look at this, right, Katie, and have okayed it.
They took a look at it, they okayed it, and they actually asked after it went to our school committee and was approved that if they could use it on their site as a model wellness policy.
Okay, so that's very nice. And the other thing I wanted to ask you is, I believe the coach may be available, or we can request an additional year to make sure that it's being implemented, right? So-
Yes, yep, they did offer a year 2 to anyone that was part of year 1, so we put in the application for that, and we're just waiting to hear.
Terrific. So thank you so much to you and to Ms. Quinn for all the hard work and chairing the committee and getting us all going. And I know that Nancy is just happy to have the policy fully in one place, up to date and everything, because she gets a wonderful thing coming this coming year, right? That needs this policy in place. So we're already anticipating that in advance.
Yeah, it will be nice to have it updated and ready to go for her.
Yes, it'll be all set. So this is the policy.
Questions?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for all of this. It looks fantastic, but I do have a couple questions.
Sure.
So if it's accepted by the school committee, do you have a proposed plan for kind of rolling this out to the staff? And the reason I ask
Yes.
this is, so I'll give you an example. It says, students may not, schools may not allow students to be exempt from required physical education class time or credit unless medically necessary. And sometimes it may be other issues besides a medical issue, like a social emotional issue or something, where, maybe a 504 would have to be put in place. So, will there be a process to introduce this so that we're using good judgment and common sense, when we're applying this policy?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say that has come up on a few occasions, and usually building administrators are great, and they'll reach out to me or Steph and I, and we can either talk it through together, or I can reach out to central office and Jay and Linda and see what their thoughts are. But usually, in the past, if a building admin comes to us, we have not had any issues or any situations where we haven't been able to work it out to meet the best needs of that student in that particular situation. Totally agreed. There can be so many different situations. And that was just the suggested language that we put in medical. And social emotional, I think, would fall on, in my opinion, right? But that's a good question, would fall under that as well. So usually if anything comes up, building admin does reach out, and we can always usually find whatever is suitable and works best for the student and for the family.
Okay, great. And then, can I do one more?
Yeah.
So it had to do with, I'm sorry. It had to do with, first of all, I find it interesting at midnight, that from the night before to 30 minutes after school. What an interesting
Yeah, that
timeline.
changed.
Right,
That was a change we didn't know about.
that was interesting.
Yep.
So how will this impact things like the snack shack, or, other types of fundraisers? I know sometimes they sell candy before band concerts and things like that. Will that require any type of change? So I saw in one place that it said, obviously during the day, we're gonna focus on that, then we had the hours. But then here it says, let me see here. It is recommended that schools avoid participating in fundraising or corporate incentive programs that promote a message inconsistent with our goals for a healthy school community. So how will that impact?
So it's the key word there, I think, and maybe Nancy, you can elaborate if needed, is encouraged.
Okay.
So I believe that is not required.
It's not required.
It's not
Okay.
required.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure that people
Yeah.
understood that.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Dana,
no, good
all
question.
throughout the discussion on this policy, this kept on coming up because, on the committee are folks like Hannah Barker and other parents and so on who are involved in a lot of these activities, and with PTOs and on the things that we do. So as we went through it, we tried to think it out to see how it would impact that. But I think even more, I was pleased to know that we have the possibility on the implementation and making sure that it is going to be well implemented with the continuation for next year, which will be important. Terrific.
Thank you again, it's an excellent job.
Yeah, thank you so
Any other
much.
questions? Oh, thank you for all the work on that. It looks like, you guys
Yeah, it was a
invested
great
a lot of time
committee.
and effort into that.
Yeah, it was a great committee, so it was a good experience.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Maria. And thank you, everyone.
We need a motion.
Yeah, I know.
I move,
No, you can't go anywhere until we're done.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
no.
Now would be a good time for your
Thank
motion.
I move that the school committee accept the proposed changes to the wellness policy ADF.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion on this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0. So we'll have
We'll get
MASC.
this- Yeah, we'll get this
updated.
updated on, oh, I said MASs before, I meant MASC.
Yeah.
We'll get this updated on the website and can get that pushed out as well, so. No, thank you, Katie, for coming.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Good to
very
see you.
Nancy, thank you as well
Yes,
for coming
thank you,
earlier.
Nancy.
Have a great night.
All right.
And good luck with the end of the school
Maria,
year.
thank you for being on the committee.
Oh, pleasure. This was a nice committee to be on, fun to work with them.
Great. Item number 3 this evening is just a memo for transition planning. So I'm going to turn this over to Assistant Superintendent Hirsch to walk through.
Sure. So we talked to the building principals. I know that a lot of people were wondering, what are we doing for transition planning up to the next grade level, whether it be up to a school, a different grade level, which would also include our remote students as well. And they were able to give us a summary of everything that's happening in their schools and what will be happening now and then in the future. And you'll see like a lot of overlap of the same type of items. There's a lot of move-up days that have happened, both at the middle schools. They just actually, today, Mccarthy went, and on Monday, I'm sorry, Parker went today and on Monday, McCarthy went up to the high school. They met their mentors, and mentees got together at the middle schools. They've been doing some transitioning for them to go up to their next schools, to their next grade levels. In fact, I was at Parker today, and I saw a lot of kids even just visiting different rooms that they might visit beyond their classroom, and what it's going to look like, especially if you're 6th grade to 7th grade, because they go to so many different classrooms. And then a lot of the common themes that you'll see at the elementary levels, we finished all our case screening, which was great. So we saw all of our students, and even though they have these move-up days and these different, play dates and fun dates, they're going to offer more of them this summer, especially for remote students that have not stepped into the schools in the past year and a half, as well as provide additional tours and mentors for people that, again, just to help students reacclimate back to school. We did bring them back in, obviously, this April to the end of June, but there's going to be a lot more of that work that's going to need to be done. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody had an idea of what type of events were happening at the schools and then what's to come. And of course, they'll add probably more things that we don't even have on this list as they start to plan for next school year.
Any questions on the transition plans? So a lot of this has been virtual still, though, like a lot? seemed
No,
like-
in fact, like
No?
the remote students, they came in, so they made specific days for students to be able to meet on the playground, walk through the schools, even like the clap outs, all of those different things have been those students coming back into the building, so they didn't have to. If somebody did need to do something remotely, they did make videos
That's
for
why-
the,
that's why I
I see what
asked,
you're
'cause there was a
saying,
lot
yeah.
of references
Yeah,
to
if somebody
videos.
still is not
Okay.
comfortable and they wanted to
Okay.
finish out the school year, there were some unique ways that they were still able to offer them their move up, and their move up days, and also be able to even stream into the classroom with the teacher when the other classes moved up. Saw a few of those today, so students were, I wasn't used to it because we've taken a lot of the kids off of their remote assignments and they're fully in person. And I'm like, oh, there's a group of students up there. That was the remote students that were coming to the move-up times when I was in the classrooms today.
Just a question on remote students. Is there a process, or do they just return to school? In other words, do they need to let us know that they want to be full in person next year and are remaining part of the district? Or is it just, we're just taking it for granted, they're going to come back and they're going to be here full time?
It's assumed that they're going to be full-time in person, because all districts are having to go back to be full-time in person for the fall. So if someone weren't comfortable coming back in person, and we can be communicating that this summer as well, their options are really to enroll in one of the 2 virtual schools that the state sponsors. They could do a private school, a parochial school. I don't know what type of remote options they would have. But we're gearing up for full-time in person for the fall, and that would be our only program offering.
That's great.
So we're going to assume everyone's coming back to us unless they opt out on their own. And then they would go through the normal withdrawal process of notifying us, and we would send the records and everything to their new school.
Okay.
And we've put a notice out to homeschooling parents that are re-registering back into school to let us know that they're coming back. If not, they have to give me a letter of intent to homeschool. So if we find that we're still missing some people, we'll make sure we reach out to them as well.
Yeah, I
Okay.
do, that's a group that, we a lot actually did homeschool just for the year that don't normally. So that's a group that we anticipate coming back to us. So that's a group we've made outreach to. But your average student who just happened to go remote for the year, it's assumed that they're going to come back, and we're spacing them to come back for the fall.
Great. I have a little personal knowledge of what's going on with the CHS mentoring program. I think they've done a tremendous job of trying to really make sure that they're getting every incoming freshman that they can, and using the skills of the technology and so on to make sure that they catch every single person. So what you asked, Dennis, yes, they've used a lot of, I've seen it, some of the videos that they're using, which are really well done for the incoming students, and they can continue to show it if they've missed anybody. But I think they've worked hard to do that, and they split up Parker and McCarthy and in order for the spacing and so on to work out well, it seemed, which this is what I've heard, and it seemed to go really well. And for EL students, some have already met with their own mentor, even prior to now. And I've only heard very positive things about that, because they really got to start to develop the one-on-one relationship between the mentor and the mentee. This is at the CHS level. I don't know, I haven't gotten a lot of input from the middle schools and what's happening with the transition there.
I happened to be at the high school this week when Mccarthy was doing the walkthrough, and the kids looked like they were really having a good time, just getting to know the space and meeting the advisors and the teachers and whatnot. I wasn't there the Parker day, but I was there the McCarthy day, and it went really well.
That's great.
And hopefully, the beginning of next year will be a normal beginning of next year, and they'll be able to do all those,
Sure,
those
right.
kind of
Right.
activities they would do to get the kids acclimated then too, which you couldn't do this year, which
Correct.
they messed out on, so.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to go through a period of a couple of weeks at the beginning of
Adjustment,
Yeah.
yeah.
reacclimation.
Right, but at least we can do it this year.
Right.
Right.
Compared to the last.
I also think as part of the transition, I happen to be talking to one of the e-board members from CPAC, that some of these groups may be thinking about having, that it's a possibility, we talked about, of like a meet and greet in August, kind of, get things rolling, prior to the school year starting. And I think that there's going to be some other groups that are going to be doing that as well, which I think is a terrific idea. Just an informal process to kind of get people back on track and, as I said, re-involved in some of these things that,
Sure.
really just were, not unavailable, but certainly not available in the same way.
Yeah, that's one of the things CHIPS always does. They'll have a play date kind of thing, informal, run by the PTO, so that parents and students can meet before the school year begins. They do it a couple times during the school year also.
It was great to see here in this report the number of parents who attended the K greet days at the schools. Really heartening to see this. I don't know, it's really not a huge part of this report, but other great things that have happened in terms of this is at the end of the year, I'm seeing people try to pack in as much as they could in terms of ending the year and in person, trying to, in clubs and activities and things that, during the year they only saw each other remotely and so on, but now are back in person. And I think that that's helped a lot of students because now they're going to leave again and be out of out of each other's not with each other for a bit of time. So that's been very, very good to see that happen, to help the students be back and be part of a family in a sense, which is what each school is.
I agree.
So,
I think our staff has done a tremendous job.
Oh, yeah.
It's tremendous. The whole year, and now with this next phase, that, we're going through. I did have a question on remote. So my understanding from the Department of Education is the remote option is no longer as of September.
Correct.
But we did have some students, and this is true throughout, the state or country, that did better, remotely than they did in person. What are their options? I know we have homeschooling. What about, do they still have the virtual schools through the
Yeah,
department?
those are the two virtual schools that I mentioned.
Okay,
Linda, the name escapes me. One of them is
One of them's
Greenfield.
Tecca, and the other one is the Greenfield School.
Yeah, Greenfield and Tech.
Oh, right,
Those
right.
are two statewide options.
right,
Those would be like, online districts almost, if you
Right.
think about it that way.
They're Commonwealth schools.
right.
And we do have some students that may choose to, some students that may choose to enroll
Okay.
in those. That's an option.
So there is an option, but just not through our
It's just
district?
not-
They
Okay.
would be in that district. They would
Okay.
not be our students. They'd be
All right.
enrolled in that district because it is considered a district.
All right, terrific, great, thank
It'd
you.
almost be like enrolling in like our technical school, like our regional school.
Okay,
You would enroll in one of those.
all right, great.
So, and I'm gonna ask one further question on that. If they choose to do that and take one of those options, are those students allowed to participate in other activities in the school, district?
No.
They don't go to the
Okay,
Chelmsford
that,
Public Schools.
that
Like if they
needs
went
to
to
be
Neshoba.
clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be like, yeah, if you chose to go to Neshoba,
yeah.
then you're a Neshoba student.
Right. Okay.
And you would participate in their sports and activities and whatnot, but you wouldn't have the option to coming back to Chelmsford. So
Yeah.
the same thing with, say, Tech or Greenfield. If you choose to enroll in those districts, they have supports and parent groups and whatnot, but you would then be part of that community as opposed to the, or compared to the Chelmsford schools.
Good. I think that's important to clarify that because personally, I've had several parents approach me to just say, I want you to know that because this particular activity kept on going and my son or my daughter was able to continue to participate in this, it made the year sane and they were able to, continue on. So in remote learning that we had, students could still participate in activities and
Right.
did. But this would be different,
It would,
just so that
yeah.
people know.
It would.
Right, and I think that's fine, and, and parents, know that if their child really, did well remotely and they want to
Right.
continue that there are options through the state, but not through the district.
Correct.
Right, any other questions on transitions? Summer program?
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to stay with Assistant Superintendent Hirsch.
Oh, yeah, I'm
and,
gonna
summer
continue on
programs.
through the thunderstorm. It would be great. So I'd given you just a small glimpse and also the link. Actually, when we started with the whole pandemic, we had put together a list of resources when we all were scrambling and not sure what we should be doing by department and by grade level, content area, and so forth. You'll see there's 3 different areas. And that really worked out well last summer, too. So what we did last summer is we updated that so parents could access this when it was convenient for them to give their students an extra boost in learning. These are actual activities and resources that are either our district-wide ones, such as iReady, iExcel, any of our online products, as well as, outside resources that are age-appropriate and grade-appropriate. So we went back through, as the whole curriculum department, through each of the different options that were available for this upcoming summer, added some, took out ones that were, no longer, they were antiquated and we weren't using anymore, so that parents can then just kind of log on, decide what they would like their, child or children to do during this summertime, and be able to just at least access some resources in each of the content areas. So we established this, put it out obviously in the newsletter, sent it out through the schools, asked each of the principals to put that out there, and it's just a nice way. We had honestly, last summer, and I think it was a combination, when I went back into that last s'more, there was over, I want to say, 20,000 hits to it, but that was a combination of, say, March all the way through the summer. Even as of right now, we're up to 1,000 people that have gone on to this to be able to start capturing some of the resources. So it's a nice way, especially if you have set aside some time for your children. In the morning, you're going to be doing some schoolwork. Here are some things we would like you to do that are appropriate.
Any update on the summer program we were gonna offer? I know we're waiting to hear about.
Yeah, so we didn't have enough staffing to be able to hold summer school for all students. So what we're doing is moving forward, still obviously with the extended year programming through special ed and for our L students for this summer. So it's still the same times and dates, it's just that it won't be expanded out as we expected for all of our students.
And there is still the middle and high school recovery option.
Yes, so 7 through 12, it's required, there's still credit recovery. Summer school, those are the students that have been identified by the administration to attend summer school for credit recovery. They do that online with Edgenuity and check in weekly with the, we have a summer school, staff member that is running that whole program for them. So those students have been contacted and they will be using Edgenuity in order to do the credit recovery. We went in and rebuilt out all the classes to meet a summer school requirement.
Question on use of technology. If students want to access this and don't have the laptop, because I think, do they turn them in
They're
at
turning
the
them in.
end of the school year? Is it possible to borrow if they need one for the summer?
In very rare circumstances, I know Bill has worked with families to try
Okay.
to provide technology. We don't provide a device for every student all summer. It's the one time of year that the tech group can really kind of go through the devices, update them. They have a short, kind of 8-week window to be able to do that, and then they get redeployed in the fall. Most students do have, a device at home that they would just use for this. If there is someone who's really struggling that has no device or whatnot, they can reach out and we can see if we can help them with like an older piece that we might not be using this summer. We don't have large scale, inventory to be able to help with, but if there's a couple of smaller situations we can help with, we'd certainly try. But tech really does try to get those devices in so that they can be cataloged and cleaned up and re-imaged for the fall.
Okay. And so if somebody does have that need, they should work through their school?
They certainly could do that, but in the summertime, it is difficult at times to get a hold of different staff members in the school because of vacation schedules. So off our main website, there is like a help desk, a ticket
Okay.
you could put in through the tech department. So you could put a ticket in, and then someone from the tech department would receive the ticket and be able to respond.
Okay.
That's honestly probably the safest way, because you just don't know if someone might be on vacation in the school.
And then if, my other question would be, Dr. Hirsch, do we have, what are there are a large number of students that have to avail themselves of the credit recovery? Is it a very large program?
No, it's not typically a large program.
It's not?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little bit larger this year, I think, just given the, COVID year, but not, it's nothing extensive. We have one staff member that manages all the programming for the students, so it's not a huge program.
Okay, thank you.
Can kids access these resources through the library computers?
Yep,
Oh, sure.
so they're
Another
logging
option,
on, like it's a
yeah.
clever portal,
Right.
they're logging on, if it's our, online pieces, they're going through the clever portal, so they just log on to the Chelmsford Public Schools portal like they would if they were in school.
So that might be another option.
Is this Edgenuity, is this?
Edgenuity is our summer school credit recovery we use. That's the, the programming. The other programs is, like I said, the IXL, the Lexia, the iReady, all of those different programs, and anything online that we've created, just resources-wise through a Google Doc. So they would access it, watch videos. We've directed them to different websites. Like PBS is really great. They have a lot of nice programming for students for the different content areas. So each of the departments have decided what would be appropriate by elementary, middle, and high school for each of those content areas.
Right, any other questions on summer programs? Okay. All right, handbook.
Yep. Item number 5 this evening, we have a memo from Cheryl Kirkpatrick, Director of Personnel and Professional Learning. Back in 2018, we implemented a staff handbook, a resource manual for all different aspects of the schools. This year, there really are not any substantive updates to the manual. You do have a red line version and then a clean copy. Most of it is just on an annual basis. They have to go in and make sure the links are still working, like health insurance rates get updated, things along those lines. So you just have the red line version and then the clean version. And similarly to the wellness policy, we'd just be looking for a motion to approve the updates as presented to the amendments to the 2021 employee handbook as presented.
Does the union group look at this ahead of time also?
They don't. This is like a public document now. We did, when it was originally created, we had to go through a process with them. They had asked to bargain over different aspects of it. So that has already taken place. If we were going to make a substantive change, they would then also have the ability to bargain, after the fact. These are just link updates. There's really nothing to negotiate or bargain here. So, no, but I mean, certainly once it's posted, it will be a public document. But there's nothing that's really changing except for links.
Other questions?
One group we had worked with in the past, I believe it was the paraprofessionals, had requested job description. Do we have any place where the job descriptions are listed for, I know they're not in here, but should they be? Or-
They're not in here. I know at one point during negotiations too, that came up with that group.
Right.
And we had supplied the negotiating team with copies of all the different job descriptions that we had. I don't know how that was relayed or if it even was relayed to the membership.
Okay.
I could go back and look and just see what my notes on that were.
Okay.
We have pretty generic job descriptions for kind of like the type of position, whether it's an ABA para or regular
Right.
para. Sometimes there's little specificity if it's like a particular program they're supporting. But it wouldn't necessarily be here in this document, but I can see how that was shared.
Right, but they would be available if somebody requested
Oh,
it.
someone requested it,
Okay.
certainly, yeah.
All right.
And like I said, we did share those with the union as well, so if they even ask the union will be able to share them with them.
Okay, great, thank you.
Other questions on the handbook? Okay, take a motion.
I move that the school committee accept the proposed changes to the employee handbook as presented.
Second.
Okay, any further questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Thank you very much. Item 6, I'm going to ask Joanna to just review the financial audit reports that were prepared for the 2 middle schools, Parker and McCarthy Middle School, and a little bit of background on that.
Thank you. So we had the external auditors, Powers and Sullivan, come in the spring and audit our middle school student activity accounts. And we're on the requirement is to have them audited once every 3 years, and then we've chosen to just do it once every 2 years. So we do the high school 1 year, and then the middle school is the next year, and stay on that pattern. So they were here. It's always very positive experience. You learn a lot from them and their experiences in other districts, and it's a great opportunity. So they then wrote up the reports. It'll be on the website, and I handed you, they still provide 9 bound copies, so I gave you one for Parker, one for McCarthy. They did have a couple comments, and so there were no findings, but they did write some comments, which is just their suggestions for improving the process. And when I compared it to 2 years ago comments, we've really shown a lot of improvement. And that's, due to our principals and their secretaries and my staff here in the business office and all the advisors sticking to our policies and procedures. So I thank all of them for their help with keeping all of this within the DESI guidelines.
Any questions?
Will we be implementing these suggestions?
Yes, what we always try. One of them is they do not like, and we do not like, when an advisor pays for something and we reimburse them. We prefer to have the vendor invoice us. So that was one of the comments. And sometimes, though, a vendor will just not do it. They, will only get this little thing for this club with a credit card. So, you just have to make a decision. The principal has to make a decision on what's best for that club. And then the thing with the ticketing and the deposits, every district has this comment. I've talked to other districts. We have our deposit books with numbers on it. So we really haven't come up with the perfect way to satisfy not having that comment, but we'll
I was
continue.
going to ask that because it does
I
come up
know.
all the time. It's like, is there any way we can get, over that hurdle?
It's
Do we even know what they're looking for? I mean,
they not, they want this like little number ticketing system that says this deposit matches up with this bank slip with this record in our system. And we have the deposit slip with a number on it. We have the deposit book. We have our how we put it in the system. I don't know how I'm going to get to like a 3-part form that has that same number on that whole entry. I'm trying to show how it's all connected, because it is very important, and we're just not there yet.
Right. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, well, thank you. Good job as usual. We don't have to take a vote on anything, just a report.
No, we're just kind of conveying them to you. If you had any questions, happy to answer them. No, Joanna and the group really do a very nice job with it. And as we mentioned earlier, like, some of these comments are just, comments that you are going to see year to year in these reports. And it's tough. I think we actually have knocked off a lot of the bigger ones over the last couple of years. I think there's a very good, kind of paperwork trail for all the different transactions. And I mentioned to someone previously, one of the areas, without belaboring this, that it's just very difficult to do is some of these transactions are very small. And if you think about it from, like, say, the classroom teacher perspective, if a classroom teacher is having a field trip, and we have, like, say, a 6th or 7th grade field trip line, that the class is going someplace, and they're collecting $10 per student for the field trip. Ideally, the auditors would like to see that particular teacher have a book of receipts that are numbered, and they'd be writing out a receipt for every kid for $10, and then that receipt would be flagged with the deposit ticket that day that goes to the bank, and in reality, it just doesn't happen. The teacher accounts for the 10 kids on the list, and there's $100 that gets sent to the office, which gets deposited, but the deposit might, they might wait for 2 classes' money to go in, so it goes in the next day. There are all these different safeguards in place, but it's just, I really don't know of a district that has gotten down to that level to be able to really meet the auditor's, recommendation. And again, it's not a finding, because materially we have all of the backup and whatnot for these, and it all crosswalks and balances. It's just that at some level you don't have those, say, classroom receipts for materials, and I don't know that we're realistically going to get there either. I don't want to set up kind of false hopes. So that is something to work on. Obviously, the bigger transactions, an athletic event, you have a football game or whatnot. Yes, you have, clear delineation of gate receipts and how much money came in, how much money went out, what goes to the bank. That's a bigger one. But if they happen to randomly pick, a 4th grade field trip to Smolak Farm, that was $100 or something like that, that's one that could, you could have the $100, but it might not be accounted for the way that the auditor wanted it. And it's just very difficult to really overcome that.
So I happened to call Dr. Lang today because I had a question about this. And I know that one of the things he said that you were looking into, but there's no perfect system, is using something like the, when kids register for sports, how they pay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like taking like an electronic payment.
Right,
over
exactly,
a,
so that we can just eliminate the whole exchange of cash, but I guess there's just not really anything that kind of meets our needs at this point, is that correct? Although I know you were looking into it, so thank you.
We are, and they're expensive. So some of these online systems, it's almost like a little mini bursar's office that college would have. I mean, that's kind of what's out there. And then we'll just need to decide, are we gonna, they range from $5,000 to $9,000 a year in fees, software fees. And then you need the back office people, or to manage that.
Right.
And I, my team can definitely take a big chunk of that responsibility, but then we also need it at the school level. With it's almost like little
Right.
rosters and that. So
Right.
there are solutions out there. We have looked at them.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, in addition to like that and the legwork,
Right.
we just haven't found the perfect one. But beyond that, even when it comes to, like, say, some of these smaller transactions, say a parent, a parent may not have the mechanism to provide a credit card payment all the
Sure.
time. They might have $10 in cash, and that's
Right.
the only way that they can really
Right.
provide it to us. you know, if we are down to $5 or $10 for, say, a field trip we're collecting, and the group wants to pass off a $1, you know, finance charge, we might get pushback from parents also saying, listen, you're only charging me $10 and I have to pay $1 or $1.50 finance fee
Right.
for passing it through. It almost becomes
Not worth it.
not worth it, quite
Yeah.
honestly, as long as you have that other backup. And that's what we juggle with. That's what we, you know, we kind of wrestle with. Trying to
Yeah.
find that happy medium so that it's practical, that you have all the backup you have necessary to defend yourself in an audit.
And the only reason I brought it up, to be perfectly honest with you, is so that people really understand the amount of time and effort that you and your staff put in terms of not only managing all of this, but also looking for alternative solutions. You know, because I think that there is a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, as I said before. You know, when Nancy was here, that people just don't understand,
Yeah.
you know? I don't even understand it sometimes, so. So I'm happy, you know, to have you say that so that people hear that we are doing our due diligence in terms of exploring other options.
And on the other end, I want to just thank Joanna too for working with the principals and, you know, the advisors to get the receipts in so they can get paid in a reasonable time, you know, doing the warrants, and you're signing a warrant for something that happened, you know, last July, and it's April because they've held on to it that long, but they've been much better this year in terms of getting those in a timely fashion, which just makes, you know, your life a lot easier. But also, in signing the warrants, you're looking back and going, why is this coming in now? And that hasn't happened really that much this year, so.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on the audits? Great. All right,
Thank you for that. Next couple items are related to some one-time expenditures and then budget transfers. And just as way of background, it was a couple meetings back that we presented a list of some one-time expenditures with some of our available funds or projected available funds at the local budget at fiscal year end. Those purchases have been encumbered, projects are underway, so we're very happy about being able to make those purchases. At this point, we got a couple of big things ahead of us as we're coming to the fiscal year close on June 30th. So our big payroll is this Friday. This is the last regular check. It's the balloon check, so everyone gets the summer checks. Then we can liquidate encumbrances and really kind of get to the bottom of all the salary accounts that may have surplus in them, as well as going through the process every year of closing out purchase orders. You know, you may have made a purchase order out for $1,000 for something, and ended up coming in at $925, so you've got $75 tied up on a purchase order. You liquidate to be able to have available funds, and you can kind of collect that and do, again, some one-time purchasing. So as of right now, we're estimating about $1.5 million, about $550,000 may still be available for one-time purchasing. The recommendation this evening is to basically continue going down our list of capital projects that we wanted to get completed, because again, this is just going to help us in the long run anyway. And there are two that we're going to recommend that we go with this evening. And then when we do get together in July, there are going to be a lot of different kind of cleanup transfers that we do every year to bring our budget back into appropriation. So the first thing that we would recommend, and this is an outright purchase, it's a state contract purchase for the $174,298, is a refreshing or an upgrade of the different furnishings in the learning commons at the high school. Chairs, tables, desks, a whole new kind of setup for the library at the high school. That's a hard number. We, you know, again, state contract, we have the purchase orders ready to go, so that would come right off the top. What we then would like to do is get authorization from the committee to move forward with the Mccarthy Middle School kitchen renovation project, which again would be the next big kind of kitchen project. Now, obviously, if we were to go full with the two of them, it's about $625,000. And right now, we're only thinking we're going to have about $550,000. Now, that $550,000, you know, it's not going to go down, but it could go up a little bit. So what we're seeking your approval to is actually do the outright purchase of the first one, and then on the second one, get approval to go up to the $450,000 amount. And over the next week or two, as we're closing down the budget, if we end up having, you know, $560,000 or $570,000 or $580,000, be able to basically do as much of that McCarthy project as we can, leave a very small amount, and then we would come back in fiscal '22 when we have more time, and we would finish that up. That is not going to be an actual purchase right now, because there's lead time on a kitchen renovation project or whatnot. So what we need to do is basically give ourselves some wiggle room in the planning and of this whole project, So what we would do is actually carry the funding in the food service revolving fund, which rolls over from year to year, and you don't have a project like a hard stop date when you have to have a project done. Most of our projects are going to be done by the end of the summer, and they're fine using fiscal '21 budget money on. The McCarthy kitchen has got lead time. You've got some design work. You've got to order equipment. It's likely some of the stuff will come in over the course of the school year. We might look at a Christmas vacation, something like that, to be able to do some of the work, but it's not going to get done this summer because of the lead time. What we would end up doing is, and again, this is why we don't have to have a hard number tonight, you'd be approving basically the concept. We would move expenses that are in the food service revolving fund. We would move those expenses through an expense transfer back to the local budget, which would then actually increase the amount of money that's in the food service revolving fund, and the food service revolving fund rolls over from year to year. So if we use the money in '21 or '22 or '23, it's not going to matter because it rolls as part of that. So we don't have to actually know now, or technically even on June 30th, it could be one of our end-of-the-year cleanup transfers. We'd be expense transferring, not appropriation transferring, money from the revolving fund to the local operating budget. Do you know what I mean? And we're going to basically back into the number. Ideally, if we could ever do the whole 450, we would, but it might only be 4, or it might be 4.25. But conceptually, we wanted to get your approval to go in that direction. I think it gives us the most flexibility as we look to close the year. Again, these aren't, made-up projects. These are projects that we had talked about and planned, and it will just remove them from the capital list, and then we'll be able to get a little deeper next year as we do it. And from a financial standpoint, it makes the most sense because we have that flexibility in the revolving fund. We don't have to worry about fiscal year ends and carrying over funds. And the renovation project, very well is probably going to get started next school year. There's a chance it might actually leak into next summer. And then you'd be talking about '22 and '23 fiscal years, and we wouldn't have to worry about any spending issues from a revolving fund as opposed to a local operating fund. So that's the recommendation before you this evening. I know it's a lot to think about, so I tried to kind of lay it out for you in the memo. And we would ultimately look for that approval. When we get to the next item, we do have the transfer for the Commons, the Learning Commons upgrade, because that's an actual hard purchase. And then we would come back to you in July, likely when we meet, with all of our other transfers. So happy to answer any questions. And again, this is kind of part of the strategy to have us be having the most flexibility with our available funds and, basically bringing over any of the allowable carryovers into our revolving funds that we can. Food service, athletics, civic activities. Circuit breaker is going to be the big transfer that we're going to have at the end of the year. And that's going to really allow us to carry some money into fiscal '22. And then in the fall, late summer and the fall, we'll be able to talk about some additional spending options for next year. And that could be certainly one-time purchases, but we could also look at augmentation of staff and services, interventionists, social emotional supports for students as they come back. We'll have that flexibility then. And this will really give us that flexibility.
Is that a filibuster?
What's that?
Nothing. Just wondering. That was filibuster.
That was uncalled for.
Questions?
I just have a question about the Learning Commons. I would have one about McCarthy. If we had a high school that we knew was coming because
Right.
of the potential that, this money is gonna be used here, but I see its importance in these few years. For the Learning Commons, what is the refurbishing of that? What is the high school doing with the Learning Commons? The last time I looked at the accreditation for the high school, the Learning Commons was actually very important
It
in
is.
that accreditation report. And is this something that, we're gearing up for the next accreditation process? And what's going on here?
Well, two different things. On
Okay.
the McCarthy piece, I agree with you. If it was like imminent that the school might be closing, then it might not be worth putting that kind of money into the facility. But even if we were to get a new high school at this point, or a new school, you're still 10+ years down the line, and you need to refresh that space. So I really do think that that makes sense. With the Learning Commons, the high school next year is going to be in their planning year for accreditation, and then the accreditation team will come in the following year.
Okay.
Libraries are a critical component of it. This is actually a project that Bill and technology has been more involved with than high school level, because a lot of Bill's people work in the Learning Commons with technology type
Right.
supports. And if you're in there, obviously it's a great space, but a lot of the furnishings are just outdated and are really in need of a revamp. So they worked with a couple of companies to come in and provide, new student, seating and tables, a more college kind of feel. If you go to like a college library nowadays, more like upscale, where you can actually, if you're at a table, you can plug in your laptop because you have like, say, power like this. Modular furniture, so that you can actually like wheel tables together if you're having a meeting or a class or something along those lines. So it's really just kind of bringing up the furnishings. The space itself is staying, right? We're just talking about like new furniture and equipment for the space itself. It's certainly not going to hurt with the accreditation coming up. That wasn't the primary focus. It's just that the space is in need of an upgrade,
Okay.
or an updating.
And that was on our capital list as an item?
It's been kicking around for a bit, and it wasn't, I believe, on next year's, but there were items for upgrades to the Chelmsford High School. It might have been called library, I don't know if it's called Learning Commons. But, yeah, we've been talking about this actually for about a year and a half or 2 years. There's a lot of ideas of just kind of renovating and redoing that space.
That whole space.
Well, that's a nice thing with these one-time expenditures. We can add those things now to the capital plan. that we've
Yeah, I
been
mean, you
kicking
technically
around.
could add something if
Yeah.
you wanted to. As we get into, like, say, the next year or two, and you know as well from just being in some of the schools, even when it comes to some of, like, just the regular classroom furnishings, we're in need of an update. Usually if you do a new school building project, you get new teacher desks, and you get new student desks and whatnot. We haven't had one, in a long time. At the elementary and the middle schools, we actually benefited from kind of COVID in a way that, we had to buy a lot of new desks for the library and the CAF and whatnot, so those will be able to be reused, but we didn't really buy anything for the high school. We have upgraded, say, the cafeterias, because, we bought new CAF tables and things like that to try to kind of bring it up to speed a little bit, but a lot of the furnishings are just older, and I do see, I don't know where this is on the capital list, I know it was talked about, but even just when it comes to like updating again, like teacher desks and things like that, workstations, we're gonna have to start investing in that in the years to come.
Okay.
All right, so what we have for transfers does not include the
Yeah.
McCarthy kitchen.
No, the two transfers, so I think on this particular memo, I'm just looking at like conceptually, do you agree? Do you see, value in going this direction? And then if so, in the budget transfers, which is the next item, we have a couple of transfers, and one of them is to be able to move funding to provide for the Learning Common purchase, because that's a straight purchase. You're not moving funding right now for the kitchen, because that's gonna be the number we back into at the end of the year when we're closing the books. And that's basically gonna be an expenditure transfer to move funding from the charges that hit the revolving fund, move those charges to the local budget, which has the effect of increasing the available funds in the revolving fund. And that will all be done with year-end close.
And none of this affects all the things we've already approved for one-time expenditures, like prepaying the tuitions and all that stuff.
No, well, you still have to vote for that.
Right, no, but I'm just saying, we're
No,
still.
we still on about $1.3 million
Yeah.
is what we're looking
Yeah,
for
okay,
that.
I
No,
didn't-
it doesn't affect
Okay,
that.
That's what I wanted to.
This was all, any of the one-time stuff we've already talked about has been accounted for. And now, we had said there was gonna be a little delta here, and that's what we're kind of honing in on at this point. So no, we're taking care of that. We're gonna carry over funding from the tuitions. And now this is just two additional kind of one-time purchases.
And your sense is that we're pretty good in the coming year for, the extra emotional support type of guidance, anything that we need to make sure students are okay, staff is okay,
Yeah, I-
transitioning into next year.
I honestly feel very good about our budget. So we know that our budget is solid for next year as far as service and personnel to begin with. Beyond that, we're gonna be transferring that, by repaying that tuition, that's gonna free up about $1.3 million. in
Okay.
funding next year that we can allocate towards, again, kind of those either services or one-time expenses. But beyond that, we also have the ESSER funding.
Right.
So the ESSER funding can be used over the 3 years, so that's like an additional layer of support. So no, I'm really feeling very good. And we had talked a little bit earlier as well, we hadn't accounted for, because we really didn't know where it was gonna go during a COVID year, the Valley credit that we get, so we didn't have any money coming to us from that. And I had a board meeting last Thursday, and it looks like we're gonna be getting about $500,000. So if you think about it, you know, we've got the $1.3 million, we've got $500,000, we've got the ESSER, you know, we're gonna have over $2 million to kind of target towards recovery, if you wanna call it that. So I feel very good about that.
Okay, great.
Other questions?
Back when we met as a tri-board in, I think it was December,
Yeah.
there was some discussion around what the town manager was recommending. And then I think we decided to restore, you know, some of that money.
Correct.
When you meet with him now and you're showing him that, you know, using some of this one-time expenditures to take things off of the capital list, I mean, does that, I'm trying to think, like, I don't want to say, you know, restore faith, you know what I'm getting at here, but does it kind of show good intention, or do people understand that the point is that by using these one-time monies and removing them from the capital list, this frees up monies for other services in town?
Right.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, like you said, I don't think it's a matter of restoring faith. I think the relationship has been solid for a
yeah,
while.
restoring faith is the wrong word, but I couldn't figure out
I
what the
think
right word was.
there's maybe an appreciation
Yes.
for the fact, because even like the town, when they received, because they received their own ESSER, I'm not sure if it's called ESSER, but they received their own funding that can be targeted toward like capital improvements. So we did some school work. They're gonna be able to do some work on town buildings. They see all this as a way to, again, just get more capital projects done.
Right.
Than if we just waited for, say, the $3 million appropriation from the town every year.
Right.
No, I think this is viewed very positively.
Okay,
Because again, even on our side, we're going to be able to update our list and now knock off a couple of other projects.
right.
So no, I think it's viewed positively.
You know, I think it's, and I don't know if you're going to talk about this at town meeting on Thursday?
This,
Yeah,
town meeting Thursday is really about 22.
okay,
So it's not necessarily about like closing out 21.
Okay.
If it came up, I could certainly talk about it. I do talk a little bit about just some of the projects we've been working on, like how
Right.
we've kind of come through the year.
right. Because I do think, you know, I mean, it is a lot of money. You know, people talk about the size of the budget, and, you know, I think we've done a great job, but anything that we can do to help people understand how we're spending the money,
Right.
you know, I think it goes a long way.
Yep, I agree.
Right, can you just go through all three, there's three different transfers there if you want.
Yeah, so is everyone just on the one-time expense, those two, like conceptually, people are okay with that and they kind of get that? Okay, so then the next item was a standalone item for the budget transfers, and I'll actually ask Joanna, if you don't mind, to walk you through the specific line items.
Thank you. So we're asking for 3 budget transfers totaling $325,873. The first one is for $14,954 for instructional technology, and this is to purchase computers and a teaching monitor at the high school early childhood pathways classroom. And that's also where the Lions Pride North preschool students go to school. The second one is a transfer for $136,621. And this one, we did something similar last year. So this is to fund the lease payments for the one-to-one initiative from the local budget rather than the school choice revolving fund. So this, those lease payments were made last August, and this would then fund it from the local budget, and then the school choice revolving fund would have a larger reserve. It's getting close to $2 million. The third budget transfer is what Dr. Lang just talked about, and this is to fund the $174,298 from the local budget. You had already established this DESI category for capital land and buildings. And we feel this large purchase would fit that category. So those three components total the $325,873. And we're using the favorable accounts, which we talked about in prior quarterly updates of labor to fund these one-time purchases.
There's no cap on school choice, how much you can heap in it, like some of these other accounts? Okay.
No, and again, that was just a strategy to be able to kind of
Right.
carry over money to give us the most flexibility in the years to come.
Any questions? All right, I'll take a motion.
I recommend the school committee vote at the regular school committee meeting on June 15, 2021, to approve these FY 2021 local operating budget transfers for the Chelmsford Public Schools as presented.
Second.
All right, Donna,
Aye?
Jeff,
Aye.
Maria?
I,
Aye. Great.
Great. Thank you. And obviously, in July, we'll be finalizing everything and firming up all the NDVS stuff. So thank you for that, and thank you, Joanna. 9 is just a quick verbal update for you. I know I talked at a previous meeting, and I'll try to be brief, with Dora Whittier about having possibly come back and take a look at our facility planning. Had a couple good conversations with them. They're actually going to come on Thursday to meet with us for a little kind of planning session to look at a couple different factors. One being our long-range facility plan, which included the MSBA application for the new school facility, the high school possibly, and how that would all pan out. Second being more taking a look at the short-term, the 10-year capital plan that we have over the last 5 years. What projects have we completed? Do they agree? Are we on track? Where do we then go for, the next 10 years? Because we really do need to kind of go back and revisit that, and a strategy to do so, because we wouldn't have to necessarily bring in all the engineers and architects from the previous go-around. Most of the reports are still the same. If you looked at an HVAC unit 5 years ago and you haven't done any work on it, it didn't get any better. So, they're certainly able to just use that data from 5 years ago and help you put another longer-term plan together. And then a third facet would be to take a look at, as we're potentially waiting for a bigger project, either just other reconfigurations of our existing spaces that we might want to look at that would be beneficial and helpful to the district. So that's something that we're going to explore as well. On Thursday, we're going to try to get an idea of the scope and the size of the project, both timeline-wise. What I would like to see work begin is sometime this summer, working with us, and then through the fall. Ideally, for myself, I'd like to see a kind of a completion date by around the holidays. So going into the budget for '23, we might know of any recommendations that are coming. So that would be my personal goal. What we have to see is monetarily how big of a project this might be with them, to see if there's going to be any bidding that's going to be required. So we may potentially have to put a scope of services together and then go out to bid. And Dora Whittier could be a respondent, others could respond as well. And I want to try to get a head start on that, so that if we do have to go that route, that we can get that going immediately, to be able to get a bid on the street, be able to award a contract over the summer months, and then again begin. So just a quick update for you that work is happening behind the scenes. I will have an update for you with the July meeting when we meet, to let you know what we're going to have to do process-wise to engage the firm to work with us on this particular project. But we do have another actually in-person meeting on Thursday to try to fine-tune what that scope of work might be, and a timeline and cost. So just didn't want you to not think we're working on it. We're working on that, and I think it's going to be a valuable project.
Any questions on that? Be interesting to hear what they have to say.
I'm curious. I really am
Yeah.
curious, and I very much enjoyed working with them, and would love to continue to work with them. We just have to see if it's all going to line up and how to make it work appropriately.
Like, how many years ago did we have them in?
2016, so,
5 years ago?
yeah, we're coming up on 5
Yeah.
years.
5 years ago?
Yeah, if you believe it,
Wow.
yeah.
Time flies.
time flies.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, ironically, three of the four kind of principals with the firm that worked with us originally are still there. So that's the group we're going to be meeting with on Thursday. So,
A good maintenance plan is imperative.
I'm sorry?
A good maintenance plan is
Yeah,
imperative.
you have to have a preventive maintenance plan. You do.
Yeah.
All right, and then my last item on the evening is just item 10, personnel report for the month of May. You can see that the activity has increased, and, May, June, and July promise to be busy months for us. I do have to say, in the hiring process, when it comes to our teachers and professional staff, we're actually doing excellent. I think we're down to just a couple of openings. So to be at that point before we actually close the school year is very encouraging. And I think I know Amy, our director of SPED, and some of the principals have been taking a look at like para supports and things like that they need for next year to be able to get those postings up and going before the end of June. And that's also good. It's a good target date. So I'm happy with how the hiring is moving along. And like I said, you're going to see a lot of names, some new names to the district. So just sharing those with you.
Any questions on it?
This is a very, I mean, it's a busy report, and it's going to be like this over the summer, I understand. First, I wanted to say Cheryl Kirkpatrick's department has been extremely busy this year in many, many ways. I mean, dealing with everything to do with COVID and the impact of it upon personnel and upon staff. I'm wondering if it might not be a great thing to have Cheryl at some point present to us just on where things are. I know that there were 2 positions in there that were being shifted around. I don't think that there's been a hire for one of the positions, at least I don't recall that it was. And so I'm wondering how she's doing in terms of the staffing in her own area.
Sure.
And would not want to see that in any way become detrimental going forward, because I think that transitioning into next year is going to be just as difficult on our personnel as it's going to be on our students and families. So would like to see, where things are at, and just so, so we get a sense of where she's at, and if all the needs of that department are being met sufficiently, or whether she needs some additional assistance to get through this transition. It looks quite a few people here, and
Yeah,
onboarding
this
new
is-
people
right.
takes time and effort, and to do it right, training, everything else that's needed for new hires. So just thinking of that.
Yeah, we certainly can try to do something over the summer months. This is, pretty typical for this time of the year. You're going to see the bulk of our hiring happening, May, June, and really I'm hoping it's slowing down in July. July should really only be positions that fall through, last minute, resignations, retirements. This is going to be the bulk of the hiring between now and next month. But we could talk about that over the summer.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be good.
Anything else on personnel? See, we got a new special ed chairperson to replace the one that went to CHIPS, right?
Well, we did.
The very first new
Yep,
hire. Okay.
Allison, there's an announcement, actually, that's going out this week on her hire. She'll be joining us in July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
You're getting the preview of the announcement.
All right, anything else on personnel? Okay, any liaison reports?
Okay, yep.
Jeff?
I have 3. So the Alumni Association met. They're still waiting to hear from UMass Lowell for a date in the fall when they can have the Hall of Fame dinner, so hold on to your tickets, they're still good. The Alumni Association awarded 164 scholarships this year, totaling $65,845 to this year's seniors and alumni. Also, George Simonian was at graduation with us, attending his 64th graduation, which I love going to graduation with George because it was only my 38th, so I feel real young. So, what a nice thing hanging around with my friend George. The high school PTO had their final meeting. They were involved in senior events, the barbecue, the prom. Everything went so well during senior week. As a matter of fact, some of the junior class officers thought the senior prom at Kimball's was such a good time that they'd like to add that to their senior week in some form or another. The outgoing president, Chris Lefebvre, ended her tenure with the board, as did Vice President Beth Morrell, and the new board is co-presidents Deb Smith and Deb LeBlanc, Vice President Hannah Barker, Treasurer Nancy Poley, and Secretary Kristen Fulcher. And finally, CHIPS, they had their final day today. Staff set up an inflated arch for families to drive under after picking up their children to celebrate the end of an amazing school year. The CHIP staff celebrated with ice cream provided by the PTO and gave retirement goodbyes to longtime paraprofessionals Faye Burns, Francie Joyce, and Susan Hoare. Last week, on Tuesday, the PTO sponsored the Staff Appreciation Luncheon for CHIPS and Community Ed staff. The box gourmet luncheon was created by Lindsay's, was enjoyed and appreciated by all, but it didn't have their mashed potatoes. So Lindsay
The
says the
chicken
best
pie.
mashed
You
potatoes.
can't have chicken pie in the summertime.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, that's sponsored, I love their mashed potatoes. And Field Day was held on Friday in conjunction with Touch a Truck. The staff created individual hand-designed T-shirts for each student, and all classes participated in a variety of activities held on the field. Thank you to Lieutenant Spence for working with our PTO to organize our community helpers in the PTO this year. Again, successful year of fundraising and enrichment planning. The support that the PTO provides financially and hands-on is appreciated by the staff. Retiring from the board this year is Kelly Lucy, the vice president, and Emily Sloan Rosati, the secretary, and the new incoming PTO CHIPS board is Elizabeth Noki, president, Jill Coleman's vice president, again, Mary Ellen Forti is treasurer, and stepping down from president but fulfilling the role as secretary is Jennifer Del Solar. And I enjoy working with all three groups. So it was a good year. All things considered, I think the PTOs, the alumni, I think everyone did an incredible job in very, very difficult times.
And on the high school one, Jeff, I think they also ran a luncheon.
Well, they did, yeah.
They did a big luncheon for the entire staff, right? I also have one for Harrington. So they did a T-shirt sale and a dine to donate at the establishment. And the establishment graciously donated 30% of the sales, totaling $750 for Teacher Appreciation Week. They did something each day, and including, they also did a catered lunch for the staff. On the Friday, they had an ice cream truck come, which was very nice. They have a lemonade-themed end-of-the-year teacher send-off retirement party, and I believe that might have been today. They also did a T-shirt with sayings for the end of the year, and they've been absolutely tremendous on trying to transfer as much as possible during this year, and I congratulate them on that. Mrs. Moriarty sent a notice,
I didn't get
and I don't have the exact dates, but the Table of Plenty is moving over to St. Mary's Church while the senior center is being renovated, right?
Yep.
I think Tuesdays, time-wise, is the same time, and it'll be drop-off there. And then they're still serving their meal at the usual times, but at the St. Mary's facility, just to let them know that. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Donna, anything?
I'm also, thank you.
Okay, I had a couple, Center School, PTO had their last meeting, they reelected their board, basically the same people for next year. They had their fun walk fundraiser, and at the time of the meeting, they had already reached their goal that they were trying to achieve and all the money's going to the playground, and they still had like a week left, so I don't know what the final total was, but they were around $20,000 at the time of the meeting, so I'm sure they were well past that. And they, just like all the other schools, had all their end-of-the-year activities and clap-outs and all that going on. Also, from CPAC, 6 community members were recognized by CPAC for their outstanding efforts and support. Donna might have to help you with some of the names. Amy Reese, Director of Student Support Services. Amy Matson, Assistant Director of Student Support Services. Ellie Barnes, who is the co-chair of CPAC from 2018 to 2020. Kristen Erickson, who is the current co-chair of CPAC. Amy Domwow, is that correct, Donna?
Domo,
Workshop coordinator, and if you can help me with the last name?
Baez Sands Gary.
Sands Gary, who's the treasurer of technical support. So congratulations to all the people on their recognition by CPAC. All right, anyone have any new items? A couple okay.
I believe that there have been elections for our school committee reps from the student body. And so I think it would be, if we could, Dennis, I was thinking of reaching out just over the summer and providing them with, our schedule and so on, just to welcome them aboard. And really looking forward to having them here with us throughout the coming year.
Good.
Be wonderful.
We could definitely send them the meeting schedule and all
Yes.
that, too. Okay.
Yeah, we'll actually put a meeting together this summer with them, kind of talk about process and involvement and how to get packets and all that stuff. So we'll do a little training for them.
Great. All right, a couple things, just a reminder, Thursday is town meeting. School budget should be that first night, I would assume.
Yeah, I think we'll be the first night for that. And Capital should happen that first night too.
Yeah, 7:45, I believe, at the senior center is where it's
Correct.
gonna be. Also, I'm sure everybody got it, but MASC looks like they are gonna have their conference, and look like some good topics there. I know we talked about this with our workshops, so there are gonna be some topics that we'd find useful. And just looking at the list, there's definitely some things that I think,
Yeah.
we'll find helpful. And then the last thing, I just wanted to, since it's our last meeting of the school year, I just wanted to take the opportunity one more time to thank the staff of the Chelmsford Public Schools for the effort they put forth this year. I know from personal experience that this was a year like no other. Whether it was your first year or your 31st year, there's no precedent to fall back on. So everything you did was on the fly, and it's not easy. It can certainly take a physical toll and a psychological toll, so I'm very happy that you'll all be getting a very well-deserved break in a few short days. Also want to thank the families of the Chelmsford Public Schools for their understanding and for their own individual efforts to help make this as good a year as it ended up being. While we as a committee are tasked with making global decisions for the district, you all needed to make your own personal decisions that were best for your families. We realized that every family had their own struggles, whether it was how to help their students learn from home, balancing their work schedules, dealing with their own experience with COVID, and unfortunately, in some cases, the loss of a loved one. This has not been easy on you, and we appreciate all of you've done for the last year as well. Finally, to the students, thank you for doing your best with a difficult situation. I think one of the most remarkable things we saw this year was how easily you were able to transition from remote to hybrid, and finally, for many of you, to in-person learning. Getting to see your achievements over the course of the year made our experience in the committee worth all the work. So just thank everyone for making this year possible and for making a safe, successful school year. So,
I agree.
Absolutely.
said, Dan.
Yay, yay.
Yeah, absolutely.
all right, any new public comment anybody received? Not either. All right, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.